Hello, my spectacles to desire is but the ghoul next door. Your favorite ghoul fiend. Hello, my spectacles to desire is blood the ghoul next door. Your favorite ghoul fiend. And we're having another really hot day here today. But this would be episode 9, I believe, of my 2026 Halloween series. And I got on the bingo card today is watch a religious horror. So I picked the movie The Exorcism, the Russell Crowe movie from, I believe it's 2024. I think it was a 2024. Okay, so we open up with a actor walking into the set of what's supposed to be the Exorcist house. He's going over his lines. He's going through his blocking, and we watch through because it's just a set, so there's only half the house there. We're kind of watching from the point of view of the director, even though there's nobody there. That's the point of view we're given. And he does his lines, and then something grabs him, and we see his neck kind of, I don't want to say implode, because it doesn't really do that, but we see a mark come across his neck, and then he dies. Cut to what would be our lead character in confession. This would be the next actor. This is the Russell Crowe character. He's the next actor to be given the part of the priest who we just saw the first actor die. He has a teenage daughter who he's kind of almost estranged from, but not quite. Like there's some definite hostility between them. She has just been suspended from school, so she comes home to stay with him. I guess it was supposed to have been a boarding school. She comes home to stay with him, and he gets her a job on the movie set. We learn that he is an alcoholic, having just gone through rehab, and that his wife had been a cancer patient who did not survive. So there's all this kind of blame and distrust between the daughter and him. So he has some abuse trauma himself from when he was a kid. And as he's going through the motions of the first couple of scenes with this movie, the trauma is brought up, and the trauma is brought up on purpose. His director had kind of done some research on him and learned about the abuse, and he's kind of not really blackmailing him per se, but he is using it against him, as in he'll get up close to him and say, you know, when blah 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 happened, tap into that anger, tap into that disgrace, and use it, type of thing. After a day or two being on the set and kind of going through the character, the Russell Crowe character, I'm terrible with names. I don't, a character's name could be said, it was Anthony. His character name is Anthony because the daughter keeps calling him Tony. So the Tony Anthony character, after like 2 or 3 days on set, he starts to experience some, at first you think it's going to be hallucinations, and he's getting sick. He starts sleepwalking. His daughter wakes up in the middle of the night to find him. They live in an apartment building. His daughter wakes up in the middle of the night to find him in the basement of the apartment building, naked, and he pees himself. He has no recollection of what's going on. She thinks that he's just blackout drunk, when that's not the case. We're then introduced to some of the other members on the set, one of which is a priest who's supposed to be there to kind of give them the research and things. When the daughter decides to go to the real priest and kind of like, what's going on? What should I do? How should I handle this? He tells her, it's some childhood trauma that your dad went through. He probably needs to see a counselor. The movie is just bringing up this childhood trauma for him, which of course it is. And then we see a scene where the priest goes and starts going through his library, and he finds references to to a certain demon, which they are using in the movie to be the big bad. From there, they're on the set again, and they're doing the exorcism scene, and Tony can't get through the scene. He's passing out, he's getting dizzy, he just cannot get himself to say the lines. So he kind of storms off set, and he's about to quit, when all of a sudden something happens to him, and we see him literally be possessed. The demon breaks his back and kind of bends him over the wrong way, and then we see him suddenly sitting at a table, and he keeps banging his head on the table, and that's when they realize, we have to shut down, something's going on. So the director then hires one of the other actors to take the role, because of course the director, that's all he can think about. And as that other actor is doing the lines, he gets killed. He gets stabbed through the eye with a piece of glass. So they finally shut down the production, and the character of Tony, he's fully possessed now, and they're trying to figure out how to do a proper exorcism to get rid of the demon. He throws himself out a window, but he just disappears. They find him later on set in what's supposed to be the cold, it's called the cold room, and it's where they literally have it like the set is kept below freezing so that you can always get a scene where someone's breath is coming out. The priest, the real priest, who was supposed to be consulting for the movie, he goes into perform an exorcism on Tony, and he ends up having to take the demon into himself and sacrifice himself. We cut then to the end of the movie, and Tony's in confession again, and he's saying how things have improved, but they're not completely improved yet. There are some, that's the movie. It's, there's some jump scares, but they're used very sparingly, only when necessary. The movie itself, it deals with, well, faith, but grief and guilt, fear, the estrangement between the daughter and Tony, that melts away And at the end of the movie, when he's in the confession for the second time, because it bookends the movie, he talks about forgiveness. Forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness of each other, forgiveness in the idea of faith, which I think is supposed to be the underlining theme of the entire movie. We're never, like, when he has the flashbacks of what happened to him as a teenager, as a kid, we're only seeing little bits of it. We're never seeing the entire thing of what happened to him. Even at the end, when we see like a full clip, it doesn't explain totally what happened. He was we're led to believe he was abused by a priest, and that's where his trauma comes from. But what we see is actually a priest performing a blessing on him. And I'm not a Catholic, so like I don't understand the imagery they were giving, like, to say one thing other than this is what it looked like. So I'm kind of like, okay, I would like a little more background on the trauma that he's having, but it's always alluded to that he was sexually abused. You have to wonder, was this movie trying to say, because, I'll word it this way, because the two actors, the actor who comes in at the beginning to play the priest and the actor who takes over the position of priest after Tony has his situation happen, because they did not believe in anything, they were sacrificed. But yet, because our main character, because he did believe, he was targeted because of that. And I'm almost reluctant to say that the Russell Crowe character of Tony is the main character, because while everything is happening to him, we don't really see it from his point of view as much as we do from the daughter's point of view. It's almost as if it's her story, even though we're bookended by his confession, like him in the confessional, and it's happening to him. It's kind of like we're seeing it through her eyes. She's technically the heroine in this, and he's kind of the damsel in distress, if you want to look at it from that point of view. There is a lot of comparison, of course, to addiction. That is a running theme through a good chunk of this. And how he feels about his addiction. For the first half of the movie, he is sober. But then once all the trauma starts to kick up, he slides back into drinking. And there's this undertone of the guilt he feels for not being able to have stayed sober. His sleepwalking and blackouts and memory loss, which everyone kind of just pushes off as being, oh, well, he's drinking again. He's partying again. which actually ends up being the elements of the possession, you've got to look at this movie from like, okay, we're using the metaphor of demons as a metaphor for personal struggles, but at the same time, we're slapping you in the face with, no, this is a demon causing all this. So you can look at it from either way. You can look at it from strictly a religious point of view, or you could look at it from a metaphoric point of view. I liked the fact that this was a story within a story, and technically a story within a story within a story, because here we are, we've got a movie about a movie, but at the same time it's being told as like, well, this happened to us when. So it's kind of meta without trying to be meta. I keep coming back to the idea, like to the thread of forgiveness in this, and how his vulnerability makes him perfect for the role, but at the same time ripe for the possession. And you've got to wonder how much of his trauma, how much of his grief, how much of his pain is affecting, well, of course it's affecting those around him, but he tries to hold it in and hold it together. And it's not until he kind of lets himself be vulnerable that this happens. But in order to get through it, he has to accept it. And that's where the whole thread of forgiveness comes in. It's more of him having to forgive himself for doing what he did, which was the drinking and abandoning his family in their time of need. The daughter has to forgive herself for being angry with him. You almost get the hint that the character of the priest consultant, you almost get the idea that there's a backstory with him, but we're never given any of that, if there is. The other co-star, who ends up having a relationship with the daughter, she's almost like a afterthought. This was the second exorcism movie that Russell Crowe did. He did The Pope's Exorcist, and then like a year later, or less than that, he did The Exorcism. And I know that they're doing a sequel to The Pope's Exorcist. I kind of hope that they would do a sequel to this one as well, to The Exorcism. There is plenty of what's the word I'm looking for? Material. I can't come up with a better word. If they're to go forward with, if they want to look at The Exorcism as a metaphor for family situations. I know I'm not being as eloquent today as I'd like to be, and I know I'm not being as smart. I swear, I seem to get dumber and dumber the older I get. There's so many layers in this movie, emotionally speaking, and the movie lays it out in the first couple of minutes when the character of the director, he says, "We are making a psychological drama thriller disguised as a horror movie." And that is exactly what you were getting. You were getting the drama of the layers of trauma that this man and his daughter have to deal with. their what caused their estrangement, what caused them to be estranged. Yes, that's the right word. I swear, menopause brain is real. You're getting the element too of corporate greed through the character of the director. He is very focused, very callous, very doesn't care about anybody but himself. The scene that he has where he's basically bullying the Russell Crowe character into digging into his trauma. You feel so sorry for the character of Tony. You see the pain on his face, like he's doing everything he can. He's doing everything he can not to break down and cry right in front of them, to hold it together. And when he finally has enough, when he finally lets his anger come out, that's when the possession starts. On the surface, this movie, I think, is one of the best movies to deal with exorcisms and possessions. Digging deeper, there's so much there about psychological trauma and your faith and how faith affects us on a daily level, even when we don't think it does, no matter what your religion is. But okay, I'm going to end that there, and I will see you in next week's episode, and I think I might have a recipe for next week. I have to look at my calendar. All right, until next episode, creeping screams.